Hi. So Maimonides wrote this, I believe, 700 years ago, approximately. Let's get to it. Hakdamas HaRambam Zichrono Livracha. The introduction of the Rambam, or Moshe ben Maimon, may be remembered for blessing. B'Shem Adonai El Olam. In the name of God, Lord of the world. And this is from Genesis 21:33, where it says, and he planted an Ashel, this kind of tree, in Beersheba. And he called there in the name of the Lord, the God of the world. So this title, Adonai El Olam, it's from Genesis. Vayita Ashel Biv'er Shava. Vayikra Sham B'Shem Adonai El Olam. Okay, cool. Az lo evoish behabiti al kol mitzvaysecha. And then I will not be ashamed when I gaze at all your mitzvot. This is Psalms 119, verse 6. Kol ha-mitzvos shenitnu loi l'Moshe b'Sinai b'ferushan nitnu. All the mitzvos that were given at Mount Sinai to Moses were all given together with their explanations. Shenemar, as it says, V'etina lecha esluchos ha'even v'haTorah v'ha-mitzvos. It's written, it's implied by this verse in Exodus 24:12, where it says, and I will give you the tablets of stone, the Torah, and the mitzvah. Torah, zu Torah shebechsav. Where it says Torah in the verse, it's a reference to the written law. Veha mitzvah zu pirusha. Mitzvah is referring to her explanations. Explanation. V'tzivanu la'asos haTorah al pi ha-mitzvah. And God commanded us to fill the Torah according to the instructions of the mitzvah. So we do the Torah according to the mitzvah. Okay. Mitzvah zuhi hanekra'as Torah sheba'al peh. A mitzvah is that which is called the oral law. All the mitzvahs that were given to Moshe were given with their explanation. Shenemar, as it says, it says, I'll give you these luchot, these stone tablets, luchot, ha'even, and the Torah and the mitzvah. So, okay, luchot 7, I guess it's obvious. It's luchot 7. It's the stone tablets, which were placed in the ark, I believe, in the Holy of Holies, right? Which today is buried deep underground there, I believe. Comment, any mistakes you may comment them, please. Let me know. Okay. Veha Torah veha mitzvah. So what's besides luchos? We have Torah and mitzvah. So Torah zu Torah shebechsav, it's the written law. Veha mitzvah zu perusha. Veha mitzvah and the mitzvah. What does that mean? It's all her explanation. V'tzivanu la'asas haTorah al pi ha-mitzvah. And he commanded us to do the Torah through the hand of mitzvah, which is the explanation. So you do the Torah through the explanations. Mitzvah zuhi hanikras Torah sheba'al peh. And the mitzvah he's the thing that's called the oral law. The explanations is the oral law. Okay, cool. Got it. So far, so good. All the Torah Moshe wrote before he died in his handwriting, in his hand. And he gave a book to each and every tribe. And a book, he put a sefer, it's like a scroll, a book, he put in the Aron as a witness in the ark. Okay. Shenemar, as it says in Deuteronomy 31:26, L'koyach ha-sefer ha-Torah hazeh v'samtam oisai v'goymer. It says, take this scroll, the Torah scroll, and place it beside the ark, and it will be there as a testimonial. So he put one in the ark, he gave one to each tribe. So he personally transcribed the entire Torah before he died. Even the part where he dies in, I guess, apparently. Let's see if he talks about that. Okay. The mitzvah shehi perush HaTorah, and the mitzvah, which is the explanations of the Torah, the rest, the explanations, which is the oral law, we said, he didn't write it, rather he commanded it to the elders and to Joshua and to the rest of Israel, all of Israel. As it says, all the matter, all the thing that I command to you, plural, I command it to you. You should regard it to do. And because of this, it's called the oral law. The mitzvah, the explanation of the Torah, he did not transcribe. Instead, he commanded it verbally to the elders, to Joshua, and to the totality of Israel. As stated, be careful to observe everything that I prescribe to you. You see, even all of Israel. No, you see that he was... Be careful to observe everything that I prescribe for you. Not clear what something here missing. Okay. It's okay, we can let it go further. Even though the oral law was not transcribed, Moses, our teacher, taught it in its entirety in his court to the 70 elders. Elazar, Pinchas, and Joshua received the tradition from Moses. So Moses taught it, the oral law, to the 70 elders, and not only that, he also taught it to Elazar, Pinchas, and Yoshua. Those three received it from Moshe also. So you have Moshe giving to the 70 and Moshe giving to the 3. Interesting. 70, I'm just thinking is 7, the 7 lower sefirot, the emotional sefirot, 3 is like the 3 higher sefirot. Right? Chachma Bina Das, or Keser Chachma Bina. Chachma Bina Das probably here. I don't know. And then 70, what's 70? But you could say 7. I don't know. Just trying to break it down. It's simpler. But I'm making it more complicated. And Joshua was the student of Moshe, our teacher. Masar Teresh Bal Peh v'tzivo aleh. He gave over the oral Torah and he commanded on it. So in particular, Moses transmitted the oral law to Joshua, who was his primary disciple, and instructed him regarding it. Okay. And to Joshua, who was the student of Moses, he gave the oral law and commanded him upon it. So I guess primarily to Joshua. Similarly, throughout his life, Joshua taught the oral law. Many elders received the tradition from him. And Eli, who's Eli Cohen, from Shmuel Navi, 1 Samuel, maybe, I don't know. Eli received the tradition from the elders and from Pinchas. Samuel received the tradition from Eli in his court. David received the tradition from Samuel in his court. Who Wow. Achia of Shiloh. Happy birthday, Shiloh. He's called Hashiloni because he's from Shiloh. Interesting. Shiloni. Achia of Shiloh was one of those who experienced the exodus from Egypt. He was a Levite and heard teachings from Moses. He was, however, of low stature in Moses' age. Afterwards, he received the tradition from David in his court, so he received it twice. Ve'achia hashiloni miyoytze Mitzrayim haya, ve'levi haya, ve'shama mi Moshe, v'haya katan bi mi Moshe, v'hu kibel mi David uveis Dina. It's weird, it came back and it wrapped around, and he's becoming a step in the tradition. He was there as a kid earlier. He left Egypt with Moshe. Bunch of generations later, in the time of King David, I don't know how many years later, it's a bunch of generations later, he's still alive, and he's receiving it from David in his court. Elijah received the tradition from Achi of Shiloh, which is interesting. Wow, the teacher of Eliyahu comes from Shiloh. Interesting. Eliyahu, by the way, is Yoel with a hay. By the way. Or Ela with a Vav. Ela is my wife. Yeah. If you combine our names, you get Eliyahu, right? With a bunch of extra letters. With extra Eli, Aleph Lamedu. Okay, so Ve'Eliyahu kibel me'achia hashilanu ve'estinoi. Ve'Elisha kibel me'Eliyahu ve'estinoi. And Elisha received the tradition from Elijah in his court. Ve'Yada hakoyen kibel me'Elisha ve'estinoi. Who's Yoyada? Is he buried in someone near Tzfat is something Yoyada. Yoyada the priest received the tradition from Elisha in his court. Zechariah received the tradition from Yoyada in his court. Hoshea received the tradition from Zechariah in his court. Zechariah kibel mi Yoyada ve'estinoi. Hoshea kibel mi Zechariah ve'estinoi. Amos received the tradition from Hoshea in his court. Isaiah received the tradition from Amos in his court. The Amos kibel mi Hoshea ve'estinoi. Yeshaya kibel mi Amos ve'estinoi. Umicha kibel mi Yeshaya ve'estinoi. Micah received the tradition from Isaiah and his court. Yoel received the tradition from Micah and his court. Umicha kibel mi Yeshaya ve'estinoi. V'Yoel kibel mi Micha ve'estinoi. V'Nachum kibel mi Yoel ve'estinoi. Then we have Nachum, who got it from Yoel in his court. The Chabakuk kibel mi Nachum ve'estinoi. Then Chabakuk from Nachum in his court. Utzvanya kibel mi Chabakuk ve'estinoi. Tzvanya from Chabakuk in his court. V'Yirmiyah kibel mi Tzvanya ve'estinoi. U'Baruch ben Neriah kibel mi Yirmiyah ve'estinoi. So then we had Tzvanya and Baruch ben Neriah, getting from Yirmiyah. Ezra ve'estinoi kiblu mi Baruch ben Neriah ve'estinoi. And Ezra, who's like, I think the famous Ezra the scribe, maybe Ezra Sofer, he got it from Baruch ben Neriah in his court. Be'estinoi shel Ezra heiman ekroim anshe Knesses hagedola. Ve'im Chagai Zechariah u'Malachi u'Daniel v'Chananya Mishael v'Azariah v'Nechemya ben Chachaliah. Mordechai Balshan Zerubbabel v'harbe chachamim imaim Tashlum 120 zakenim. The members of Ezra's court are referred to as Anshe Knesset Hagedola, the men of the Great Assembly. They included Chagai, Zechariah, Malachi, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, Nehemiah ben Chachaliah, Mordechai the linguist, Zerubbabel, and many other sages, 120 in all. Ha'achroin mehem hu Shimon HaTzadik, v'hu haya michlal hamea ve'asrim, v'kibel Torah sheba'al peh, mikulam, v'hu haya chayin gadol acher Ezra. The last surviving member of this group was Shimon the Just. He was included among the 120 elders and received the oral law from all of them. He served as the high priest after Ezra. Antignois ishoifoi uveistinoi kiblu mishimoin HaTzadik uveistinoi. Antignos of Socho in his court received the tradition from Shimon the Just in his court. The Yosi ben Yeriezer ish tzurei dav Yosef ben Yochanan ish Yerushalayim uveistinoi kiblu me Antignois uveistinoi. Yeshua ben Parachia v'nitai ha'arbaeli uveistinam kiblu me Yosi ben Yeriezer v'Yosef ben Yochanan uveistinam. Yehuda ben Tabai v'Shimon ben Shatach uveistinam kiblu me Yeshua ben Parachia v'nitai ha'arbaeli uveistinam. Shemaiah ve'Avtalia in Gerei HaTzadek, the righteous converts, uveistinam kiblu me Yehuda v'Shimon uveistinam. They got it from Yehuda and Shimon. Who's Yehuda and Did we just skip? We said Yehuda ben Tabai v'Shimon ben Shatach. So they got it from Yehuda and Shimon. Interesting. Suddenly they're just Yehuda and Shimon. Why are they not Shimon ben Shatach and Yehuda ben Tabai? Interesting. Hillel v'Shamai uveis dinam kiblu mishmaya v'Avtalion. The converts, uveis dinam, righteous converts. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, Rabbi Shimon benoi shel Hillel hazaken kiblu me Hillel v'Shamai uveis dinam. So here it goes down. One of them went to his son, right? Hillel, his son inherited him. His name was Rabbi Shimon. Interesting. Chamisha salmidim hayu lai l'Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai v'hem gedolei hachachamim shekiblu mimenu ve'eluhem. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai had 5 students who were great sages and received the tradition from him. They were Rabbi Eliezer Hagadol, Rabbi Eliezer the Great, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Joshua, Rabbi Yossi HaKohen, the priest, Rabbi Shimon ben Nisanel, Rabbi Eliezer ben Arach, Rabbi Akiva ben Yosef Kibel, Rabbi Eliezer Hagadol, Yosef Aviv Ger Tzedekaya. His father Yosef was a righteous convert. Rabbi Yishmael, Rabbi Meir ben Ger Tzedek Kiblu, Rabbi Akiva, V'gam Kibel Rabbi Meir v'chaver of Rabbi Yishmael. A rabbi named Yishmael. Chaver of Shor Rabbi Meir Hem Rabbi Yehuda v'Rabbi Yossi v'Rabbi Shimon v'Rabbi Nechemia v'Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua v'Rabbi Yochanan HaSandler v'Shoemaker v'Shimon ben Azai v'Rabbi Chananya ben Tiradyoin, his friends. V'chen kiblu chaver shel Rabbi Akiva meRabbi Eliezer Hagadol lechaver shel Rabbi Akiva hem Rabbi Tarfon Rabbi shel Rabbi Yossi HaGlili Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. Rabbi Gamliel Hazaken kibel meRabban Shimon Aviv benoi shel Hillel Hazaken. Rabbi Shimon benoi kibel mimenu Rabban Gamliel benoi kibel mimenu Rabban Shimon benoi kibel mimenu Rabbi Yehuda benoi shel Rabban Shimon Zeu Hanekar Rabbeinu HaKadosh v'hu kibel me Aviv u'Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua u'Rabbi Shimon Chaverov. Rabbi Yehuda, the son of Rabban Shimon and referred to as Rabbeinu HaKadosh, our saintly teacher, received the tradition from his father, from Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua, and from Rabban Shimon and his colleagues. I didn't translate everything so far. There were a few paragraphs I only read the Hebrew because it was just him, his son, right? So, and the English was there for you guys if you're looking them up. Rabbeinu HaKadosh Chibar Mishnah, right? The holy rabbi, we said, who was that? Who did we say is the holy rabbi? Rabbeinu Yehuda, son of Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Yehuda benoi shel Rabban Shimon, he's the one who's called Rabbeinu HaKadosh. And he compiled Mishnah, same letters as Neshama. We read it for those who need it for their Neshama. And from the days of Moses until the days of Rabbeinu HaKadosh, they're both called Rabbeinu, interesting, Moshe Rabbeinu and Rabbeinu HaKadosh. Both of them, from till then, there was no one compiled any compilation that what they taught them in public with the oral law. Maybe they manuscripts, maybe it sounds like maybe the manuscripts where they kept for themselves, but for public, they never wrote down anything. You hear, so instead, in each generation, the head of the court or the prophet of that generation would take notes of the teachings which he received from his masters for himself and teach them verbally in public, only verbally. And so everyone would do for themselves. They would write notes of what he heard regarding the explanation of the Torah, its laws, and the new concepts that were deduced in each generation concerning laws. Umi dvarim shenischadeshu b'chol davadar b'dinim shalayim madum mipi hashmua ela b'mida mishloish esrei midas v'skimu aleim based in agadol. So they would write notes of what he heard himself regarding the explanation of the Torah, its laws, and the new concepts that were deduced in each generation concerning laws that were not communicated by the oral tradition, but rather deduced using one of the 13 principles of biblical exegesis and accepted by the High Court. We read this every morning in the prayers, the morning prayers. The situation continued until the age of Rabbeinu HaKadosh. So it was always like this until Rabbeinu HaKadosh. קיבץ כל השמועות וכל הדינים וכל הבירורים והפירושים ששמעו ממשה רבנו ושלמדו בית דין שבכל דבר ודבר בכל התורה כולה וחיבר מהכל ספר המשנה. This situation continued until the age of Rabbeinu HaKadosh. He collected all of the teachings, all the laws, and all the explanations and commentaries that were heard from Moses, our teacher, and which were taught by the courts in each generation concerning the entire Torah. And from all these, he compiled the Mishnah. He taught it to the sages in public and revealed it to the Jewish people, who all wrote it down. And he spread it to all places, so that it shouldn't be forgotten amongst Israel, the Orla. Why did he do this and why didn't he leave it like it was? And he saw the students are getting less, are getting smaller, and they're going. And there's new ailments and pains, afflictions. They're coming and making new tsaris, new pains. And the kingdom of Rome is spreading in the world and getting stronger. And Israel is going in circles, or being turned and going to the corners or to the edges. And the Jewish people are wandering and becoming dispersed to the far ends of the world. Why the Roman Empire? They have a footnote. The Roman Empire systematically attempted to suppress the study of Torah in all the lands under its control. Okay. Is that what they're doing now? Who's Rome now? Is it Palvanov has classes on it, 3 classes on it, Rome. But he was suggesting maybe, I started watching it for a minute, but it started to suggest Russia maybe. But people want to say also, Kessin wants to say it's just Christianity in general. It used to be Edom was. Here it doesn't even say Edom, it says Romi. Okay, whatever. Rome. Chibur, okay. So because of this, that the Jews are getting spread out everywhere. Chibur, Echad, Liois, Biad Kulam. He compiled one book that should be in the hands of everyone. Kidei l'shiyel miduhu b'mheira v'lei shachach. So they should learn it quickly, can be learned quickly and not forgotten. And he sat all his days in his court and taught the Mishnah in public. So it could be studied quickly and will not be forgotten. He composed a single text that would be available to everyone. Quote, who was in his court and received from him? Shimon v'Gamliel Banav, his sons Shimon and Gamliel, Rabbi Afes, Rabbi Chanina ben Chama. Interesting names. Afes means nothing. No, Chama is sun, like the sun in the sky. Rabbi Chia, V'Rav Chia is like life, right? That's Chaya. V'Rav, and this one, his name is just great, Rav, or Rabbi, or great. V'Rabbi Yanai, Rabbi Yanai, Uvar Kapara, Ushmuel, Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Hoshaya. Ve'elohem gedolei hachachamim shekiblu mimenu, ve'imam alafim urvavos mishar hachachamim. Thousands and myriads of other sages received from the tradition from Rabbeinu HaKadosh together with these great sages. It's not just thousands. He says, Imam alafim urvavos. Alafim is thousands, or vavos is tens of thousands. Alafim. So there was tens of thousands of sages. There wasn't just a few sages. There was tens of thousands. That's Revavos. Myriads, they translate it sometimes. Okay. Hayud Aleph. Kiblu me Rabbeinu HaKadosh v'amdu b'midrashay Rabbi Yochanan Katan haya v'achar kein haya talmid leRabbi Yanai v'kibel mimenu Torah. V'chein Rav kibel meRabbi Yanai u'Shmuel kibel meRabbi Chanina bar Chama. Even though all of the 11 sages mentioned above received the tradition from Rabbeinu HaKadosh and attended his study sessions, there are differences between them. At the time, Rabbi Yochanan was of lesser stature. Afterwards, he became a disciple of Rabbi Yanai and received instruction from him. Similarly, Rav received the tradition from Rabbi Yanai, and Shmuel received the tradition from Rabbi Chanina ben Chama. Rav Chiber Sifra Sifrei Levaer Oleidea Ikre HaMishnah. Rabbi Chia Chiber HaTosefta Levar Inyani HaMishnah. V'chein Rabbi Haishaya Uvar Kapara Chibru Barai Sois Levar Divrei HaMishnah. Rabbi Yochanan Chiber HaGemara HaYerushalmis Peretz Yisrael Achar Korban HaBaris Bekariv Shlois Meir Shana. Rav composed the Sifra and the Sifri to explain the sources for the Mishnah. Sifra and Sifrei. Sefer with an aleph, Sefer with a yod. Sefer is a book or scroll. Okay, so the Sifra and Sifrei. To explain the sources of the Mishnah. Interesting. So when we do get around to learning Mishnah, we should learn it with Sifra and Sifrei. Rabbi Chia composed the Tosefta to explain the subjects discussed in the Mishnah. So it's not the sources here, but it's the subjects. That's Tosefta. We should also get to that. Rabbi Hoshea and Bar Kafra composed Braitot to explain the matters discussed in the Mishnah. So how's that different than a Tosefta? Oh, the matter, not the subject. Okay. Divrei HaMishnah, Inyane HaMishnah and Divrei HaMishnah. Interesting, okay. Rabbi Yochanan composed the Jerusalem Talmud in Eretz Yisrael approximately 300 years after the destruction of the temple. Rabbi Yochanan. Umi Gedolei HaChachamim Shekiblu meRav Shmuel, Rav Huna, v'Rav Yehuda, v'Rav Nachman, v'Rav Kahana. Umi Gedolei HaChachamim Shekiblu meRabbi Yochanan Rabba, Bar Chana, v'Rabbi Ami, v'Rabbi Asi, v'Rav Dimi, v'Rav Oven. Rav Ami and Rav Asi a bid to in Tveria, next to Maimonides actually. He's buried right next to them. Among the great sages, and he's buried, his father is buried there. Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai is buried there, the Shlah is buried there. There's also bones that they don't know who it's from. There's other people there. There's a lot of people there. Among the great sages who received the tradition from Rav and Shmuel were Rav Huna, Rav Yehuda, Rav Nachman, and Rav Kahana. Among the great sages who received the tradition from Rav Yochanan were Rava Bar Chana, Rav Ami, Rav Asi, Rav Dimi, and Rav Afen. Miklal HaChachamim Shekiblu meRav Huna, meRav Yehuda, Rabba, v'Rav Yosef. Miklal HaChachamim Shekiblu meRabba, v'Rav Yosef, Abaye, v'Rava. ושניהם קיבלו גם מרב נחמן, ומכלל החכמים שקיבלו מרב הרב אשי ורבינו, ומר ברב אשי קיבל מאביו רב אשי ומרבינו. נמצא מרב אשי עד משה רבנו עליו השלום 40 דורות. Thus there were 40 generations from Rav Ashi back to Moses, our teacher of blessed memory, and they were Elohim, Aleph, Rav Ashi Merava. Okay, Beis v'Rava meRabba, Gimel v'Rabba meRav Huna, Daled v'Rav Huna meRabbi Yochanan v'Rav Shmuel, Hey v'Rabbi Yochanan v'Rav Shmuel meRabbeinu HaKadosh, Vav v'Rabbeinu HaKadosh meRabbi Shimon Aviv, Zayin v'Rabbi Shimon meRabban Gamliel Aviv, Ches v'Rabban Gamliel meRabban Shimon Aviv, Tes v'Rabban Shimon meRabban Gamliel Hazakin Aviv, Yod v'Rabban Gamliel Hazakin meRabban Shimon Aviv, Rabbi Shimon mehilel Aviv v'Shamai v'Hillel v'Shamai mishmaya v'Avtalion, v'Shmaya v'Avtalion miYehuda v'Shimon, v'Yehuda v'Shimon miYeshua ben Perachia v'Nitai Rabbi Eli, v'Yeshua v'Nitai miYosef ben Yoezer v'Yosef ben Yochanan, v'Yosef ben Yoezer v'Yosef ben Yochanan miAntignos, v'Antignos miShimon etzadik, v'Shimon etzadik miEzra, v'Ezra miBaruch, uVaruch miYirmiyah, Yirmiyah mitzefania, Tzfania michabakuk, v'chabakuk minachum, v'nachum miyoel, v'yoel mimicha, umicha miyeshaya, v'yeshaya me'amos, v'amos me'hoshea, v'hoshea miZecharia, uZecharia miYehoyada, v'Yehoyada me'Elisha, Ve'elisha me'Eliyahu, ve'Eliyahu me'Achia, ve'Achia me'David, ve'David me'Shmuel, ve'Shmuel me'Eli, ve'Eli me'Pinchas, u'Pinchas me'Yeshua, ve'Yeshua me'Moshe Rabbeinu, u'Moshe Rabbeinu me'Pi HaGvura. Moses from the mouth of the Mighty One. Nimtza shkula me'Hashem Elihei Yisrael. Moses, our teacher, received the tradition from the Almighty. Thus, the source of all these people's knowledge is God, the Lord of Israel. Kol elu hachachamim hanizkarim him gedolei hadoros, mehem rashi yeshivos umehem rashi goluyos, umehem sanhedrei gedola, v'imam bechol davar dar alafim orvavos sheshamu mehem v'imahem, Ravina v'Rav Ashi heim soif chachmei haGemara. All the sages who were mentioned were the leaders of the generations. Among them were the heads of the academies, heads of the exile, and members of the great Sanhedrin. Together with them in each generation there were thousands and myriads, which is tens of thousands, that heard their teachings. Ravina and Rav Ashi were the final generation of the sages of the Talmud. So what, they signed off on it? Let's see if he's going to tell us right now. Rav Ashi hu shechiber haGemara habav l'speretz sinar achar shechiber Rav Yochanan haGemara Yerushalmis b'chamoy mea shana. Binyan shnei haGemaras hu perish divrei hamishnayos uver amukos seho dvar mishenis chadashu b'chol beis din uveis din mimos Rabbeinu HaKadosh v'ad chiber haGemara. So Rav Ashi composed the Babylonian Talmud in Shinar, approximately 100 years. What's Shinar? Shinar, I don't know. Approximately 100 years after Rabbi Yochanan composed the Jerusalem Talmud. The intent of both the Talmuds is to elucidate the words of the Mishnah, to explain its deeper points, and to relate to new matters that were developed by each court from the era of Rabbeinu HaKadosh until the composition of the Talmud. Umishnei haGemaros umin haToseftos umisifro v'sifrei umin haTosefos mikulam yisbar ha'asur v'hamutar ha'tamei v'hatar ha'chiyuv v'hapater ha'pasel v'hakasher k'maisha ha'itiku ish mipi Moshe Rabbeinu misinai. From the entire body of knowledge stemming from the two Talmuds, the Tosefta, the Sifra, and the Sifrei can be derived, the forbidden, the permitted, the impure and pure, the liable and those who are free of liability, the invalid and the valid, as was received in tradition, one person from another in a chain extending back to Moses on Mount Sinai. Right, also the sources mentioned above relate those matters which were decreed by the sages and prophets in each generation in order to build a fence around the Torah. We were explicitly taught about this practice by Moses as implied by Leviticus 18:30. And you shall observe my precepts, which can be interpreted to mean make safeguards for my precepts. Shenemar Vishmartim es Mishmarti Asu Mishmeres the Mishmarti. V'chen Yispar Mehem Haminhagois V'Takanos Sheskinu Oishanagu B'chol Avadar K'Meshiro based in Shaloisa Hadar. V'fish Asur Lasur Mehem Shenemar Shasur Lasur Mehem Sur Nasur Lasur. Cool. Shenemar Laisasur Min Adavar Shayagidu L'cha Yaminu Smar. וכן משפטים ודינים מופלאים ושלא קיבלו ממוישה ודנו בהם באסתין של עשר הדר במידס שהתורה נדרשת בהן ופסקו עיסם הזקנים וגמרו שהדין כחו. הכל חיבר רב אשי בגמרא ממוישה ועד ימיו וחיבור חכמי המשנה חיבור אחרים לפרש דברי התורה. רבי ישעיה תלמידו של רבינו הקדוש חיבר בספר בראשית ורבי ישמעאל פרש מאלה שמות עד סוף התורה והוא הנקרא מחילתא. וכן רבי עקיבא חיבר מחילתא וחכמים אחרים חיברו מדרשות והכל חובר קודם הגמרא הבבלית. Similarly, it includes the customs and ordinances that were ordained or practiced in each generation according to the judgment of the governing court of that generation. It is forbidden to deviate from these decisions as implied by Deuteronomy 17:11. Do not deviate from the instructions that they will give you, left or right. It also includes marvelous judgments and laws which were not received from Moses, but rather were derived by the courts of the later generations based on the principles of biblical exegesis. The elders of those generations made these decisions and concluded that this was the law. Rav Ashi included in the Talmud this entire body of knowledge stemming from the era of Moses, our teacher, until his own era. The sages of the Mishnah also composed other texts to explain the words of the Torah. Rabbi Hoshea, the disciple of Rabbeinu HaKadosh, composed an explanation of the book of Genesis. Rabbi Shmuel composed an explanation beginning at These are the names, the beginning of the book of Exodus, until the conclusion of the Torah. This is called the Mechilta. Rabbi Akiva also composed the Mechilta. Other sages of the following generations composed other collections of the interpretations of verses, Midrashim. So we're going to have to also learn Midrash. All of these works were composed before the Babylonian Talmud. Okay, hope you're with me. נמצא רבינו ורב אשי וחבריהם סביב כדי לחכמי ישראל המעתיקים תורה שבעל פה ושגזרו גזירס והסכינו התקנס ונהיגו מנהגויס ופשט גזירסם וסכנסם ומנהגויסם בכל ישראל בכל מקום ישמש ויסם. ואחר בית דין של רב אשי שחיבר גמר וגמרו בימי בינוי נספזרו ישראל בכל הארץ פיזרו יסר והגיעו לקצרוויס ואיים הרחוקים ורב סקטתה בעולם ונשתבשו הדרכים ביוסס ונסמאי תלמוד תורה ולא נכנסו ישראל ללמוד בישיבותיהם על אף המעורבוס כמו שהיו מקודם אלא מסקבצים יחידים השרידים אשר השם קורא בכל עיר ועיר ובכל מדינה ומדינה ועוסקים בתורה ומבינים בחיבורי החכמים כולם ויודעים מהם דרך המשפט האחור. Thus Ravina, Rav Ashi, and their colleagues represent the final era of the great sages of Israel who transmitted the oral law. They passed decrees, ordained practices, and put into effect customs. These decrees, ordinances, and customs spread out among the entire Jewish people in all the places where they lived. After the court of Rav Ashi composed the Talmud and completed it at the time of his son, the Jewish people became further dispersed throughout all the lands. So we finished it in the days of his kid, okay, of his son. The Jewish people became further dispersed throughout all the lands, reaching distant extremes and far-removed islands. Wow, even islands. Strife sprung up throughout the world, and the paths of travel became endangered by troops. Torah study decreased, and the Jews ceased entering their yeshiva in the thousands and tens of thousands, as was customary previously. Instead, individuals, the remnants who God called, would gather in each city and country, occupy themselves in Torah study, and devote themselves to understanding the text of the sages and learning the path of judgment from them. Every court that was established after the conclusion of the Talmud, regardless of the country in which it was established, issued decrees, enacted ordinances, and established customs for the people of that country, or those of several countries. These practices, however, were not accepted throughout the Jewish people because of the distance between their different settlements and the disruption of communication between them. Since each of these courts were considered to be individuals, and the High Court of 71 judges had been defunct for many years before the composition of the Talmud, people in one country could not be compelled to follow the practices of another country, nor is one court required to sanction decrees which another court had declared in its locale. Similarly, if one of the Gaonim interpreted the path of judgment in a certain way, while the court which arose afterward interpreted the proper approach to the matter in a different way, the opinion of the first need not be adhered to. Absolutely. Rather, whichever position appears to be correct, whether the first or the last is accepted. Usually you can't go against the previous court judgment, but these are the high court, because we hadn't had that in generations already. What did I not read the Hebrew from though? From here. B'chol beistin she'amar achar gemara b'chol medina medina v'gazar hiskin or hinig l'vnei medina say or l'vnei medina Yisrael loy pashtu ma'asav b'chol Yisrael mipi richuk moish v'isayim b'shiva shadrachim v'heya is beistin she'oisa המדינה יחידים ובייסטין הגדול של 71 בטל מכמה שנים קודם. בחיבור הגמרא, לפיכך אין כופין אנשי מדינה זו לנהוג כמנהג מדינה האחרת. ואין אמרים לבייסטין זה לגזור גזירה שגזרה בייסטין אחר במדינה זו. וכן אם למד אחד מהגאונים שדרך המשפט כך הוא, ונסבר לבייסטין אחר שעמד אחריו שאין זה הדרך המשפט הכוסף הגמרא, ein shaman l'rishon. If he learns the Gemara differently, you don't lift us into the first. El misha adas naita lidvarav ben rishon ben achron. Doesn't matter first or last. Whoever fits more with the Gemara, because it's not the high court anymore. Udvarim halalu bedinim gzeros v'sakonos u'minahagos ischadashu achar chibur Gemara. V'al kol dvarim she'Gemara habavli chayvin kol Yisrael aleches b'hem v'chayvin kol ir v'ir v'chol medina medina linoig b'chol aminahagos נהגו חכמי הגמרא ולגזור גזירויסם וללכת בסכנויסם הויל וכל אויסם הדברים שבגמרא הסכימו עליהם כל ישראל. These principles apply regarding the judgments, decrees, ordinances, and customs which were established after the conclusion of the Talmud. However, all the matters mentioned by the Babylonian Talmud, perhaps by specifying the Babylonian Talmud, the Rambam is alluding to the halachic principle that wherever there is a difference between the decisions of Babylon and Jerusalem Talmuds, those of the Babylonian Talmud are followed. The Babylonian Talmud are incumbent on the entire Jewish people to follow. We must compel each and every city in each country to accept all the customs that were put into practice by the sages of the Talmud. It's Sharia law, enforce it. For the Jews, to pass decrees paralleling their decrees and to observe their ordinances, since all the matter in the Babylonian Talmud were accepted by the entire Jewish people. Not Sharia law, obviously, but kosher law, Torah law, mitzvahs. Force the Jews to do mitzvahs, not Goyim. But Jews, we force them. The Oisa Machachamim Sheskinu Oisha Gazru Oisha Henhigu Oisha Danu Vidin Vilamdu Shamish Pakachu Him Kol Chachma Yisrael Rubam Vehim Sheshamu Akabala Beikre HaTorah Bikre HaTorah Kula Dora Achar Dora Moshe Rabbeinu Lev Shalom Bechol HaChacham Shamudu Achar Chibur HaGemara Uvanu Bai V'yatza Lehem Shem Bechachmasam Hem Anikram Goyim. Okay, so the Talmudic sages who established ordinances and decrees, put customs into practice, arrived at legal decisions, and taught the people concerning certain judgments, represented the totality of the sages of Israel, or at least the majority of them. They received a tradition regarding the fundamental aspects of the Torah in its entirety, generation after generation, in a chain, beginning with Moses, our teacher. All the sages who arose after the conclusion of the Talmud and comprehended its wisdom and whose prowess gained them a reputation are called the Geonim. They're after the Talmud, okay. I'm just curious where we're holding, how much more. Oh, not that much. Whoa, we're pretty much done. This is all footnotes. Okay, we're pretty much done. Okay, so let's see if we can finish it now in this session. If not, no. It's cool. V'chol elu ha'goyim shamdu be'eretz Yisrael ve'eretz Shinar u'v'Sfarad u'v'Tzarfat limedu derech ha'gemara v'yitziu la'or ta'al u'moyusav u've'aru inyanav lefish derech ha'mukadar kayad l'moid ad l'moid ve'od shaho b'lshon arami me'orav im l'shon esachiris lefish oisa halash and oisa birura lechol anshe Shinar be'esh chubra ha'gemara. All these Gaonim that arose in Eretz Yisrael, Babylonia, Spain, and France taught the approach of the Talmud, revealing its hidden secrets and explaining its points, since the Talmud's manner of expression is very deep. Furthermore, it is composed in Aramaic with a mixture of other tongues. This language was understood by the people of Babylonia in the era when the Talmud was composed. In Hebrew, he says Shinar. Shinar, we said it before, what Shinar was, the land of Shinar. However, in other places, and even in Babylonia, in the era of the Gaonim, a person cannot understand this language unless he has studied it, unless they taught him. Lohavin mehem gam chibur ha'go'onim shebechol davar chiburim levar ha'gemara mehem mi sheperesh halachos yechidos umehem sheperesh parakim yechidim sheniskashu b'yamav umehem mi sheperesh masechtos ustorim. Over in other places, right? Okay, they didn't know the language, so they were taught it in other places. And even in Babylon, in the time of the Gaonim. The inhabitants of each city would ask many questions of each Gaon who lived in their age to explain the difficult matters that existed in the Talmud. They would reply to them according to their wisdom. The people who had asked the questions would collect the replies and make text from them, so that they could consider them in depth. Also, the Gaonim of each generation composed texts to explain the Talmud. Some of them explained only certain halachot, others explained selected chapters that had created difficulty in their age. Still others explained entire tractates and orders. Vayit chibur alachis psukos binyan isur v'heter v'chiv ufater b'dvarim shahasha'a tzrich alehem kedei shiyu karayvim lemada mi she'eno yachal lered le'amka shel gemara v'zoyi melechas Hashem sha'asu ba kol garnei Yisrael miyam shechu b'ra gemara v'ad zman zeh shishana sheminis achar me'ava alef luchor ban abayis v'ishnas arbas alafim usha me'ois ushloisha v'shavat librias oilam. Also, the Gonim composed text recording the decisions of Torah law regarding what is permitted and what is forbidden, when one is liable and one is free of liability, with regard to subjects that were necessary at the time, so that they would be accessible to the grasp of a person who could not comprehend the depths of the Talmud. This is the work of God, which was performed by all the Gonim of Israel from the completion of the Talmud until the present date, 1108 years after the destruction of the temple, 4937 years after the creation of the world. Now we're 5784. I don't know. 5784, I think. Uzman azet takfu atzaris yiseris v'tachaka hasha es hakol v'avdachach bas chachamenu uvinas nevaynenu nistar lefika chaysim aperushim v'halachis v'atshuva shechibur agayim v'ro shehem devar mivay niskashu b'yamenu v'ein maven in yenehem. At this time, we have been beset by additional difficulties. Everyone feels financial pressure. The wisdom of our sages has become lost, and the comprehension of our men of understanding has become hidden. Therefore, those explanations, laws, and replies which the Gonim composed and considered to be fully explained material have become difficult to grasp in our age, and only a select few comprehend these matters in the proper way. Wow, already going down levels. This is already in his time, and we're even, ואין צריך לומר, הגמרא עצמה, הבבליס והירושלמיס וספרה וספרי והתוספתא, שהם צריכים דעת רחבה ונפש חכמה, וזמן אורך, ואחר כך יוודע מהם הדרך הנכונה בדברים האסורים והמותרים ושאר דיני התורה האחו. Needless to say, there is confusion with regard to the Talmud itself, both Jerusalem and Babylonian Talmuds, the Sifra, Sifrei, and Tosefta, for they require a breadth of knowledge, a spirit of wisdom, and much time for appreciating the proper path regarding what is permitted and forbidden, and the all other laws of the Torah. Okay. מפני זה נוערתי חוצני אני מוישה בן מימון הספרדי, ונשענתי על הצור ברוך הוא ובינויסי בכל אלו הספרים, וריסי לחבר דברים המספרים מכל אלו החיבורים בעניין העשר והמותר הטמא והאתר עם שאר דיני התורה, כולם בלשון ברורה ודרך קצרה עד שתהי תורה שבעל פה, כולה סדורה בפי הכל בלוי קושיה בלוי פרק. לא זה האמר בחוי וזה בחוי, אלא דברים ברורים קרובים ונכונים, על פי המשפט אשר יספר. מכל אלו החיבורים והפירושים הנמצאים ממויס רבינו הקדוש ועד עכשיו, compiling everything from רבינו הקדוש until now, עד שיהיו כל הדינים גלויים לקטן ולגדל בדין כל מצווה ומצווה, ובדין כל הדברים שתיקנו חכמים ונביאים. כללי של דבר כדי שלא יהיה אדם צורך לחיבור אחר בעולם בדין מדיני ישראל, אלא יהיה חיבור זה מקבץ לסיירה שבעל פה כולה. You don't need any other books, so there shouldn't need any other books in the future. Just this is going to be the oral law. That's all you're going to need. For the law, you can always expound mystical explanations, hints, allegories, but for the law. Kula im hata kanos v'aminhagos v'gzeirish shenasu Moshe Rabbeinu yad chibur ha'gemara u'chumash perish lanu ha'gainim b'chol ha'chiburehem shechibur achar ha'gemara. Lefichach karasi shem chibur zeh Mishnah Torah. Therefore, it's called Mishnah Torah. They translate it here as the second to the Torah. As mentioned above, there were many rabbis who considered the Rambam's intention in the composition of this text in particular, the name he chose for it as presumptuous. Indeed, for that reason, his name Mishnah Torah is rarely used. Instead, the text is commonly referred to as Yad HaChazaka, the strong hand, so called because the Hebrew is numerically equivalent to 14. Yad, the number of books in the Mishnah Torah, or simply the Rambam. Okay. It's a strong hand, the strong 14. Why strong 14? Because he has 14 books. Okay. In the Mishnah Torah, okay. And they don't like it Mishnah Torah, second to the Torah, because Mishneh Torah, like second to the Torah, because it's presumptuous. I don't know. Okay. Mishnah Torah, it's a second to the Torah. You have the Torah and you have this, you're good to go. Okay, Lefikach Krasi Shem Chibur Zeh Mishnah Torah, Lefinishe Adam Kor B'Sar Shebechsav Tchila. First you read from the Tanakh. the written law. And after read this, and you'll know the entire oral law. Kula. You don't have to read any other book. You don't need Gemara, you don't need Mishnah, you don't need nothing. They were all to bring you to a certain point, which I have, and I'm giving you in this book. That's what he's saying to us. So it should be good in one's memory. I'm dividing every chapter decided to smaller halachot. Okay. Elu ha'halachos shebechol inyan v'inyan yesh mehem halachos shem mishpatei mitzvah achas bavad v'hi mitzvah sheyesh ba divrei kabbalah harbe v'hu inyan b'fnei atzma. Yesh mehem halachos shem karlolam mishpatei mitzvahs harbe im yu oisan ha-mitzvahs kulam binyan echad. V'pi shechiluk chibur zeh lefi yanyanim lo lefi minyan ha-mitzvahs k'may sheyispar lakari bar. Some of the halacha contain the laws governing only one mitzvah, this being a mitzvah that has many matters of the tradition associated with it and is subject in its own right. Others halacha contain the laws concerning many mitzvahs since they deal with the same subject matter. If I've divided this text according to topics, not according to the number of mitzvahs, this will become clear to the reader. Mitzvahs with 613 commandments that are for the generations. 248, which is the limbs of a person, is the positive commandments of action. The do not do's. 365. It's a solar year. Wow. Okay. Next, we're gonna have the 613 mitzvah. Okay. But I'm not ready for this yet. We're gonna make another class. We're just gonna see. Alright, this is what we're gonna have to do next. Okay, 613 mitzvahs. 613. Wow. I'm gonna have to go. It's gonna take a long time. We're looking for sponsorship opportunities, by the way, to sponsor a video. All right, I hope you enjoyed. Leave all comments, suggestions, do it. Thanks. Share the love. Like the video. Thank you.